Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers. Today we are talking with Tom Slattery, who retired as an elevator mechanic after working with both the IBEW and IUEC in New York for over 41 years. Tom's been a helper, a mechanic, a supervisor, and an inspector, and was able to experience the change from relay logic controls to solid-state systems. Tom has learned a lot and seen a lot of change over the years, and still to this day, he loves to meet up with his friends from the industry. Well, Tom, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being with me today. I'm excited to get to talk to you a little bit more. I've heard a little bit about some of your stories of the elevator trade, and I'm curious, how did you get started? What was it that got you into the trade in the first place?
Well, luck, actually. At the time, I was going to college for computers after I got out of high school. And my sister was dating a guy that was a salesman in the elevator business. And he told me, hey, you want to work out in the elevator business? I didn't know I was scared as anything. I was 19, 20 years old. Right. And I was like, okay, let me check it out. And for the last 40 years, I've been working in the elevator business. It was just one of those things. Most of the time, you need that one person to get you somewhere. And it's up to you if you can make it or not. And it just became me because I wasn't an office person per se. I like being outside. I love being in different places every day. And this job just fit my habits. It was always nice to go somewhere different, see something new. And I worked in Manhattan, so it was always fun.
Always different. Well, have you ever looked back and said, man, I wish I'd have finished up my computer degree? Or did you go ahead and finish and then jump into the trade? Or did you go straight into elevator trade?
Well, at the time, it was the late 80s. Computers weren't as big as they are now, obviously. And I took some computer classes in high school in Manhattan. I went to LaSalle Academy, Catholic High School in Manhattan. And then when I went to Kingsborough Community College in Brooklyn, I was going in to start learning how to write programs and everything when that all happened. But then once I got into the business, I just never extended, and the computers became to the elevators now. So if you knew anything about computers, which everybody does now, obviously, but back in the 90s, this was all brand new to everybody, especially the old timers, right? Because all these relay logic controllers were, being taken over, and they didn't like that idea, because they were growing up learning all that. And now it became a little computer that nobody really like, oh my God, what's this,
So you went straight from the community college into an apprenticeship, is that correct?
Yes, it was actually IBEW in New York. I was with the electrical union. They had local 3. They had the EE division, which was electric elevators. Also in New York was local 1, which was the International Union of Elevator Constructors, which was also maintenance and others. But for 20 years, I worked with local 3 because I worked for a company called Flint Hill Elevator. It's a private company, and they had a lot of big contracts in Manhattan, and they were very large. So we really never had no problems. And later on in life, it was like, okay, the best union to be in is local 1 because they only worry about the elevator guys. It's only an elevator union.
Right.
And IBEW was everybody, the electricians were God to them, we were just a bunch of stepchilds. But as now that I retired and realized I never touched any of those additional annuity funds and this and that from local 3, I found out I had, a whole bunch, almost $100,000 saved up because I never took any of that money out. It always came out of your check, went into an account. And
still had your name on it after all those years, huh?
Yeah, and even though I would always get the stuff in the mail, I just throw it to the side. And at the time, it was invest in this, invest in that. And I was trying, and I was seeing the money going up and down. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to put it in what they called capital preservation. So they use your money and you would get more interest out of it over the years. And then 20 years later, I got into Local One, which was everything. It was a higher rate. It was different, a whole bunch of different ways that they did things with money. The union dues wasn't as bad, but when something happened and somebody had to cover your back, the union was there for you. So it was always good because they just couldn't fire you per se. They had to come up with a reason, or they didn't like the clothes you were wearing, wouldn't cut it,
Sure. Like you said, they taking care of their people, making sure that you were that you weren't just fired arbitrarily. If somebody's going to get rid of you, there was a good reason.
Yeah, it was an
to
elevator union, though. That was what was more concern, and the rate of pay was much better. I mean, in either one of them, you can always get whatever rate you want. Depends on who you work for and how much you know. I mean, they're always looking for talent.
Whatever they're willing to pay you, in other words, depending on what experience and knowledge you bring. Is that what you mean by that?
Well, yeah, but basically, like also, if you're looking for, at the time when you're looking for a job in Local 3, you get right in and stuff. But Local 1 was more, how would you say, more like elevator controlled, where, most of the guys, they looked out for each other. In Local 3, it was like we were just EE division. We can only vote, on certain things, but if we had to vote for our contract, we were on strike with Local 3, we were on strike with Local 1. So it really didn't matter. But to be in just an elevator union was so much more interesting and more career related to it,
Gotcha. How did you come to that decision that, hey, I'm gonna change from Local 3? Was it from Local 3 to Local 1? Was that a company decision, or was it just, hey, I want to change?
I lucked out. I wanted to get out of Brooklyn. I had a wife and two little girls, and I didn't want them to grow up in where I was living. So I went upstate, and I just said, okay, I'm going to leave Local 3, and I'm going to go work for an elevator company, which was a private elevator company, and be their supervisor of the mod and maintenance stuff. So I wound up doing that, and then I met a friend of mine up there. And he worked for Local 1 company, which was ThyssenKrupp Elevator. And he was like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, he says, why don't you come over to Local 1? You were in Local 3. And at that time, Local 3 and Local 1 were a little bit of fighting over everybody. Local 1 wanted the elevator guys, and They were trying to get them in and over. And just again, God bless, I lucked out. And he said to me, he says, hey, I can get you into the union up here. Doesn't matter whether you're in New York. It's Local 1 is New York, New Jersey, as well as all over the country.
Sure,
but it's Local 1, and they're the largest. They got more people in Local 1 than the rest of the country has anywhere else.
Right.
And next thing you know, I was working for them, and the rest is history too. Because I just kept on going wherever the times went, and I still had to go back to Manhattan after a while, because that's where all the work was, and in the 5 boroughs.
Sure.
So I wound up moving all the way up there, an hour and a half, to come all the way back down every morning, with the company vehicle or this. They would always give you something,
Right.
Yeah, so it worked out really well.
So you actually left the union to go into a supervisory role. Is that what happened? And then you came back. But
I was leaving the union. Okay. I was just getting out because I actually found a house I wanted to live in. I was going to say, listen, I know what I'm doing. I know I can get a job anywhere.
Sure.
And I went up there, and I wound up finding somebody. The D&D Elevator was called, and I knew the owner of D&D through his father years ago, and another gentleman. And he was like, hey, you want to come and work for me? I was like, okay, sure. I'm not doing anything right now. I was looking for a job. And I was looking for a job. I was at a company up there that I was looking to get into before that. And then when that opportunity came, I jumped on it, wound up working for him for about, I think it was 6 or 8 months before I had the opportunity to go into Local 1.
Gotcha. Okay. And then from there, like you said, you came back, you started working again in Manhattan at some point. How long before you came back?
9/11.
Okay.
9/11, I had to come back down because I had an elevator inspector license. And Thyssen needed an elevator inspector down in New York City because the one guy that was at the World Trade Center actually wasn't going back to work. He
Wow.
was done. He was, he was around the area at the time. So it was then next thing you know, here I am back in Manhattan. After working, it was Westchester County, which was everything was hydros. So
Right.
after coming out of Manhattan, where everything's traction and you got machines and this and that, I was like, okay, everything's a 3-4 story building and office buildings. It was like just hydro cars. I was like, this is really retirement time right here. No more slinging cables and changing cables. And so I pretty much I stayed on the electrical end of it because I worked in repair, when I was in New York. And that was all just brute work,
Right.
And then I noticed they started coming out with the IP8300s and different selector types, which are becoming more, as we said, computerized.
Right.
And you would take old vanes out of the shafts, put up this new magnetic tape, put on magnets, which were doing the same thing as the switches in the shaft. So I started wiring those things up. And next thing you know, I was in here, and then they made me a supervisor at Thyssen. And for a while, we were doing really well with them. And then something happened with Thyssen, if I remember correctly. And then I got a job with Otis.
Okay.
And then I was working with Otis for a long time also.
Is Otis the one you retired from then?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about some of the mentors. You've told me about some of the friends, and you even mentioned just a minute ago about, I knew this guy and he got me into this company. And what I hear you saying is there's a lot of deep rooted connections in this industry, and that you've obviously been fortunate to have some of those play in your favor. Tell me about some of the people who made the biggest impact on your career, or maybe taught you some things that really made a big difference for you.
There's pretty much a lot of them, but I could tell you there's Bill Casey, who was just a genius. He was an Irish genius. The Bill Casey, who owned that company called Carter Electronics, he was a genius, and he was electrically. And then there was a man, Ronnie Paciano, still alive this day. He was from Brooklyn, and he was just a repair man. To this day, he's still kicking. He's like 80 something. And he still remembers jobs. Remember that time when we were doing this? He would do, one time, he put my skinny little ass on the back of a beam in the projects in Brooklyn because we didn't have the correct rigging to pull a machine out of the motor room. And he says, listen to me. He goes, you go up there and I want you to sit on this beam and you don't get up until I tell you. And I'm like, you're going to do what? Rig a machine out of the motor room with me sitting, I weighed 130 pounds maybe at the time. And believe it or not, I sat there scared. And he just knew how to do everything the correct way and got that machine out. And then he was like, okay, come on down now, you could get off. And I see that machine down on the street level. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't get to see what they were doing because I was praying to God. I didn't get catapulted over the thing from the weight.
So were you the counterbalance? I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Exactly was. That's exactly what I was.
I'm glad Oshie didn't see that one, right?
Oh yeah, they got the truth. But the guy's a genius. You could talk to him over the phone and he'll tell you how to do something. And basically, people like that, a lot of them. Then, over the years, there was another gentleman, Ben Ciano, who I worked with at Thyssen, and he was just a great. Everybody had great attitudes, and they were always willing to help. And it's up to you if you wanted to learn. They didn't care if you didn't learn.
Sure.
You needed to learn, but you became more friends with them when they seen, hey, you got an interest in this, and you want to learn more. And then over the years, we still, to this day, meet every year up in Hunter Mountain. a whole bunch of them, and have fun. We just hang out with my old friends, and then still hang out with the old timers, and it's real fun.
No, that sounds great. And obviously those men had a huge impact on your ability to turn around and do the same for somebody else. And so I'm sure you
Yes.
had plenty of opportunities to teach somebody who's coming into the trade some of
Oh
the
yeah,
finer
I got a
points.
lot of, you see a lot of people and then, a lot of helpers. And what do you think? What do you think? And listen, just keep your head down, show up to work every day. You're going to learn and you're going to enjoy this. If you're, an outgoing person, you're going to like this because you're going to be outside. You're going to be somewhere different every day. You might be in some place, maybe a week, someplace you're in there 4 hours.
Right.
So, changing governor ropes or, doing different things. And every day was something different, which made it so, and you learn so much more that when you do become a mechanic, you feel empowered to say, wow, now I got to teach this guy. And I had plenty of helpers that didn't want to do anything. It's like, all right, no problem. If I had to work harder, then it just made their day a lot worse.
Right. So the ones, I mean, it sounds like some of those that didn't want to do anything probably didn't work out long term because they just weren't there to work.
Some people just don't like it. First you get very dirty. Your hands are like constantly, now everybody's got to wear gloves. But the grease between your fingernails and everything like that, you always had to wash up at the end of the day with the scrubs and this and that to get it out. And it's only back to it the next day. They didn't make you wear gloves like they do nowadays.
Right.
But I got all my digits. 40 years is a big thing,
Yeah. I mean, you've been working in a high risk job and environment for a long time, and so yeah, to walk out unscathed like that is awesome. That's
don't get me wrong. I mean, a lot of days you went home hurting from rig, you're pulling weights, putting them on the elevator. And they didn't really have weight carts. They were 50-pound things you had to bring into the elevator, put them down, go get more. Your back is definitely going to be hurting. But at the end of the day, you worked.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, if you were to give some advice to somebody coming into the trade, maybe they're new, what would you tell them? And what are some of the things that have contributed to your overall success?
I would tell them to just keep their head down and learn, listen, shut up. Don't try to think you know it all. Shut up, listen, learn. And sometimes you have mechanics that really don't know what they're doing. So you got to decipher what's right and what's wrong. And you can in any way, because if that elevator is not running and this guy thinks he knows what he's doing, he obviously doesn't. He might know more than the helper, but he doesn't know more than somebody that has a little more experience. So everybody's going to fix everything. I'm the best thing ever, but you learn, and you sometimes just shut up and just listen. And that's basically it. And show up, always be there on time. Be there before the mechanic. If you start at 8, be there at 7:30. And you realize that, you see things that might not, again, so you got something that just got delivered and you were there early. And that now that a mechanic might appreciate it. Maybe he had a fight with his wife and got in a little late.
Right.
But now he can trust you. When you got somebody next to you on top of an elevator, and they're pretty much looking out for you. Everybody's got to look out, because one bad move can cut your head off. Yeah. I mean, I lost a couple of friends. We had, one of them was a platinum plate. He was doing a hydro job on 43rd and Lex, I think it was, in this place called A1 Security. And then if you went into this place, it was locks and everything all over the place. The place was like, it was like a library of just locks.
Sure.
And they were doing a thing that ran the car all the way up, and they were going to lower the piston down after they hung the car, not realizing they never took off the platinum plate, which the piston runs on the platinum plate, which is supposed to be secured to the steadying plates underneath the cross beams underneath the car.
Right.
And what happens was they started to release the pressure, and he went into the pit, and the platen plate came down and hit him, and he was in pretty bad shape for about 5-6 years before he passed.
Wow.
He's a good friend of mine, and stuff like that. You just got to be really, really, really cautious. You want to go home at the end of the day. That's the main thing. Nobody wants to get hurt.
Sure.
Nobody goes out to work and say, I'm going to get hurt today,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
just be conscientious of your surroundings at all time. Stay within the perimeter. Nowadays, it's a big difference. Again, I keep saying that because it was different. We weren't as safe. We were safe per se, but now with all the, the big companies, it's God forbid you do the wrong thing. But then again, they want you to do the wrong thing when they don't have the correct equipment. But that don't mean anything. They don't get fired. You will get fired. So
you feel, it sounds like there's a lot more rules today. Do you feel like it's safer overall, or has that changed as well?
You know what? Safety is only as the people around you.
True.
So, it's if people are safe, they're going to be safe. And back in the day, it was everything. Nobody, and I don't think once, that there was, you always get that little bruise or something falling on you or something like happened, trying to tighten down on something too much, and little scrapes in this, but nobody, ever on the job that I was on really ever got hurt. Where somebody did something wrong,
Now, like what you said about safety's only as good as the people you got working around you. And so everybody's got to be vigilant and diligent and paying attention and, following the protocols and just looking out for each other.
Yeah. And then most of the time you're a maintenance guy, you're all by yourself. So, so when I came to North Carolina, I got stuck in an elevator twice, and I never got stuck in an elevator at all. A lot of years. I found a way of getting out.
Sure.
Now with the door restrictors and all these other pieces that they put, like Otis put on these retractable edges, and they put stuff on the doors so you can't get out of the elevator. The door only opens 2 or 3 inches. And if that happened in the day where we did before cell phones and all these other things, you were stuck in there pressing the button and the phone never worked.
Right.
So
you might be there a long time, in other words.
Yeah, until some of you didn't get home that night, or somebody said, well, where is he? And there he is. Where was he last? Call work. What job was he on?
Right. Got to go find him.
Yeah. And there somebody's stuck in it, falling asleep, and you never know.
What would you say is your favorite thing about the elevator industry? You mentioned never really looking back at your computer career, and you just stuck with it for 40 years. What was it that you love so much?
The friendships that you have with the guys you worked with, and the learning of doing it and being, like I say, out in the open. You weren't going from your house to the train to an office, coming back home, right back in on the train. So you went to this building, and then you met this, or met this super at this building, or this building manager was really nice over here, and you worked in Manhattan. So it was always like you just, they let you go, do what you got to do, and you're like the, when the elevator guy walks into the building and there's only 2 or 3 cars, and one of them is down, you're their best friend. So
you probably started earlier, and you were trying to get it all done before the mad rush comes in. Is that right?
No, most of the time it's you got to take it out. It could be a 4 or 8 hour job, 12-hour job. So if the elevator was out, you always, the barricades. We didn't even have barricades back in the day. We just closed the door. Nobody knew we were inside until maybe something might have fell down the shaft or something. They'll be like, bing, 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 What was that? Oh, nothing. The guys are working in the shaft, But yeah, that's pretty cool.
What do you miss the most? Is it those friendships? Is there anything that you miss about being retired?
That was it when I first got retired, because I retired in New York, and then I had my license, and I was doing inspections in Manhattan, and it was even better. I was getting it to Manhattan at 9 and being on the train going home at 12.
Wow.
Because I would go there and all I would have to do is go into the buildings and talk to the manager, tell him I got to check the inspection tags on the elevator, go up there, check the 1, the 3, and the 5-year test, put the dates on a piece of paper, go down, go to the next car, or go to, you can only do 5 cars in one building in a day and 8 total.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah. And it was a great job. And, and then again, I met such a nice dude that I still call Charlie Marone. I met him at the class over in, I went up to New York for my class so I could see some more of my friends. And Charlie, a guy from Long Island, a little older than me, he's like such a nice guy, such a sweetheart. And me and him sat together, and I met like 5 of my other friends at the thing. It's like you have friendships that last a long time. And even though you don't see them for a long time, everybody goes in their own direction. When you do see each other, it all comes back. Hey, remember that job we did here? Remember when we did the cables over here? Remember when we were over there?
Well, and that's what it sounds like, that you've kept those friendships. I mean, you talked about going up into the mountains every year and kind of a big family reunion.
Yeah, pretty much. And it to this day, it's still fun, and it's you just bring back so many memories of, growing up in this business. It's good. Like you say, you're always going to have bad bosses and, people that, you might not like. To even then, there's a lot of guys I disliked, but as I got older, I realized, it was more me maybe than them.
You even learned to like them, huh? That's
yeah.
great.
And then now we're still great friends, guys that still go up to Hunter. Now they're they're all great friends. When we have dinners and we have lunches together, and then at night we're all having, we're staying in the rooms, and we're because they all own houses up there, and we just party and having fun, just remembering the old times.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So
it is.
I've got a question about, you mentioned that things have changed. Is there anything, if you could change one thing, maybe wave your magic wand, what's one thing you might change now, maybe keep it the same as it used to be, or what would you do if you could just change one?
Change one? I don't know, to tell you the truth. Maybe not get married the first time. No, I mean, everything went good. I mean, over the years, now that I think about it, I mean, like you said, a lot of times I was more angry than anything, but realizing that it doesn't matter, the most important thing is coming home at the end of the day and not being hurt.
Yeah.
Not hurting somebody else.
Yeah.
God forbid you drop something by accident, you don't mean to hurt anybody, but I never hurt anybody, by, kicking something. You don't even know, inadvertently, you could kick something off the top of an elevator. And if somebody's in the pit, you have to be cognizant of if anybody's below you, even when you're in the shaft alone. And other elevators, some things fall.
Sure.
Fall all the time.
Sure.
So hey, okay, you hit the other car. Now those poor people are thinking, oh my God, the building just came down. Because that's a scary thought for somebody that doesn't, just hitting on. Just happy day, like watching the numbers go 2, 3, 4, boom,
They start hearing things falling.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've got
really, I don't know, to maybe, maybe be a little more smarter, that's about it.
That's awesome. You've got a lot to be thankful for. Like you said, just coming home safe every day and build a lot of friendships. You've learned a lot.
Take that for granted sometimes,
Oh, it's easy. Yep.
Yeah. And then you see somebody that gets hurt on its site and you're like, and then at the time I was young, and I started having kids. Now you got something, that's very important to you.
Absolutely. So. Absolutely. Well, thank you for talking with me today. You've shared some awesome memories, some good things to keep in mind. And it's my hope that others can hear you talk about a wonderful industry and build their career upon some of the things that you've learned.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it too.
Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.